You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 349.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? Hope you are all doing well. I am recording this episode on the day after Mother's Day. We had a great weekend. We celebrated a friend's son's and his fiance's engagement and wedding coming up over the weekend, hosted a wedding shower, and then had a nice quiet Mother's Day, planting flowers and having dinner at one of my sister's houses. So it was a great weekend, beautiful Kentucky weather, and I hope that you are doing well wherever you are and enjoying the week. And I want to let you know something before we dive into the interview today. One of the things that a lot of you have, of course, come to me for is stories about cookbook writers, stories about cookbook writing, discovering new cookbooks, and perhaps even embarking on a publishing journey of your own. And in 2023, I launched the Founders course of Cookbooks on KDP and have helped many dietitians, cooks, bakers, recipe lovers, recipe collectors publish their recipes and stories in a book on Amazon. And that particular program I run twice a year. We just finished up the early 2025 cohort, and I will be opening the doors for that again in September. But something occurred to me as a result of something that one of my students said, and inside the program, I teach you how to publish a book. In the first part of the course, by publishing a notebook or a recipe journal or a food tracker, something simple to teach you all about publishing. Setting up your account, formatting your interior, creating a cover, picking out keywords, getting it published on Amazon. And that's something I can help you do and learn how to do in just one day. So if you have dreamed of publishing a book on Amazon and you want to publish a notebook, journal, workbook, or tracker, but you are busy and you do not have the time to figure it out alone or to take an extended course, what if we could change that in just one day? I have created and am offering an exclusive VIP experience to guide you on exactly how to set up your Amazon account, create your book cover, format your interior, and publish your book live on Amazon by the end of our day together. You'll walk away with a sellable book, a fully set up account, a repeatable system to publish your next book, and I will also help you with the template for your next book, meaning help you decide how you want to lay your next book out. Because suppose that is a recipe book, that takes longer than the journal or the notebook or the tracker, but I can totally help you also decide what the format for your next cookbook will be. So if you have an idea for a book that you want to write and publish on Amazon, and you want to make the most of your precious time, which is the one commodity that we all have that is not renewable, and if you want to stop trying to figure this all out on your own and are ready to invest just one day's time in launching your publishing journey, then the founder's price and the founder's spot for this exclusive VIP day is perhaps for you. So if you are interested, for the first 10 VIP days that I sell, I am offering a founder's price. And after those 10 spots are gone, the price will go up to another full price. It's all listed on the sales page with more information about the VIP day, the bonuses you will receive if you enroll in a VIP day, such as a cookbook design layout template, a royalty potential breakdown tool, 2 live accelerator group coaching calls inside my group coaching program, a metadata cheat sheet to help you create a very strong Amazon listing so that the right people find your book, and then 30 days inside the cookbook creators community where you get to join other cooks, bakers, food experts, and recipe collectors for a month of accountability and support as you continue your publishing journey. So if you look in the show notes, there is a link for Publish in a Day, VIP experience where I can help you publish your first book on Amazon in one day and open the door to everything that comes after that. So head on down to the show notes, click the link, read all about it. And if this experience is for you, I would love to have you join me for a Publish in a Day VIP experience. Okay, so today on the podcast, I am excited to be joined by Jessica Merchant, the force behind the wildly popular blog How Sweet Eats and her best-selling books Everyday Dinners, The Pretty Dish, and Seriously Delish. Jessica is a full-time recipe developer and writer known for her down-to-earth approach, vibrant flavor combinations, and deep passion for all things food. In our episode today, we dive into her newest book, Easy Every Day, and explore her tried and true strategies for making dinner doable without sacrificing flavor. From her game-changing Big 3 dinner shortcuts to her 10-minute meal prep strategy and go-to list of kitchen gear, Jessica shares how to bring ease and joy back to mealtime. She also opens up about her journey as a self-taught cook and offers valuable advice for aspiring cookbook authors looking to turn their passion into a published book. So without further delay, let's dive into this interview with Jessica Merchant. Hi, Jessica. Welcome to the Cookbook Love podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so excited that you're here. Talk all about your brand new book. But before we get started, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes. So I am the founder of the blog How Sweet Eats, and I started that in 2009, which feels like a million years ago. You know, there was very limited social media. There was no Instagram. There was no Pinterest. There was nothing like that. And I really wanted to start it as a lifestyle blog, but I can say that now. I didn't really know what I wanted it to be at the time, because looking back, at that time, there weren't really a ton of lifestyle blogs because there were not a lot of people on the internet that were making it their entire job. So most people were going to a 9-to-5 job, you know, outside of their home. And that's what I was doing. And that's what my husband was doing as well. And I was newly married, like I had just got married. So I started writing since I felt like I didn't have much to write about because we were at work all day. I started writing about what we would make for dinner or what I would cook on the weekends. And that's kind of how the whole thing started. And I had my first book published in 2014.
And that book was Seriously Delish?
Yes, that book was Seriously Delish. And then I went on to have my second book was The Pretty Dish in 2018. And then in 2021, I did Everyday Dinners. And now in 2025, Easy Every Day.
Nice. Nice. So why the name How Sweet Eats?
Oh, geez. Well, personally, like a bad business decision in 2009 when nobody thought this was going anywhere. You know, it had nothing to do with food, and it truly had nothing to do with like sweets. But the blog itself when I started was called How Sweet It Is, really based on the James Taylor song. I grew up listening to James Taylor because my parents were obsessed.
Yes.
So we listened to it all the time. We listened to him all the time. So I remember like I had multiple WordPress.com like blog names of his song lyrics. And that's what I went with. And then when I eventually moved to my own like hosted platform, I started doing food, and this was within like maybe 6 or 7 months. I started doing food. So I just said, okay, How Sweet Eats, because I didn't want it to be How Sweet It Is. And I don't know, but I've gone back and forth on, should I just change it and make it my name? Should my website just be my name? But I feel like my brand is so, entangled with that now.
Yes. Yes. No, if you changed it now, people wouldn't know who it
Right?
was or what you were doing. Right. That's how they know you.
Right. I was always afraid to lose like part of my community, or they wouldn't be able to find me. So, and that was again before a lot of social media. So I didn't really have a way to tell a ton of, my community if I changed the name. So
Yeah, no, I wouldn't change. I think you're right. It's something. And when you were going along, how did you know that like this was going to be something that stuck and that you were going to be working? I'm assuming you're doing it full time now and have been.
Yes. I'm doing it full time now.
Yeah.
I mean, I had absolutely no idea that it would. I think in that first year, I really started it because I was stuck in a job that I just hated. I didn't really know what I wanted to do growing up, but I knew I didn't want to be sitting behind a desk in an office in a somewhat corporate environment. And so I had recently taken a new job. And when I got there, it was very clear that like there was not a plan for me at all. There was really nothing for me to do. I was pretty much a glorified secretary, but there wasn't even work for me to do for that company. So I like sat on the internet all day, and I came across some blogs, and I think, it had maybe been a few years since the movie like Julia had been out. And I came across maybe a few food blogs or lifestyle blogs. So I started mine, and I just loved it so much. I have always loved to read and write growing up.
Yeah.
So I instantly was so passionate about it. And the more I researched, because I truly sat on the computer all day and I was not being monitored, nobody was really looking at my computer, what I was doing. I found that probably within 6 months of starting, there were people that were either publishing a book or maybe it was hard to say if it was their career, because for instance, the person that I come to mind is like Ree Drummond had started a year or two before, or maybe 3 years before, but she also had 4 young kids at that time. So I feel like it was so new. I couldn't tell, was this a job? Is this what she's doing while I couldn't tell. But then she had a book come out, and I'm like, oh, well, if I have a book, I was just trying to figure out how to get out of that job.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I got to do something to get out of this job. So that's kind of what made me try to push forward.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think like ad networks were just kind of starting to approach blogs, whether they were whatever kind of blog they were.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. And I was able to quit my job within a year because my blog was making about the same that I was making at my like work real job.
Right.
No?
Right. So if you would look back to 2009 to today, 2025, what was the most monumental change over that time in the way you had to do things, or the way that people found you, or what do you just remember in terms of the online life that you have, like what you felt like really was just
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, everything. But the biggest thing is the shift to social media.
Yeah.
There was no social media. So everybody was on your website. It was all a long form content. I mean, I would write multiple blog posts a day,
Wow.
now some people don't even write multiple posts a week. I still do, but I would do multiple posts a day. It was just what everybody was doing. And it was the only way to interact with your community. And I was so obsessed with it. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I still do, but it was so fun to have this community and talk back and forth, whether it was in the comments of blog posts or through Instagram, or not Instagram, through email. or I think like Twitter
Yeah.
was, we had Twitter. And it was just so fun. So that was definitely the biggest change. The switch to like more social media, the short form content. I am not a short form content person. If you go to my website, I am very wordy. I can talk forever. I can write forever. Like
Yeah.
short form content is not my,
Yeah.
you know. So that's definitely been a challenge. And just, when Instagram first started, it was actually great. But then once they created the algorithm and it
Yeah.
started changing,
Yeah.
that was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people that know you, though, that maybe have been with you since the beginning, know that long form content is your thing. And
Yeah, I do
I'm,
think,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And if people are finding you new today, even through this show, I think that there's a breath of fresh air in that, because that's what makes you unique from other people. I mean, and you own it, and you're willing to, let that be part of who you are and what you do.
Right. I really don't like to change it up too much.
Yeah. 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 And writing 4 books fits in perfectly with that, because,
Right.
right, to write books, we have to have content and words and things to say, and you're the perfect person for that. So that's why we're
Thanks.
on book number 4. But I want to
Yes.
ask you a question. You were self-taught. You said you were self-taught, mom-taught, grandma-taught.
Yes.
And I think there's this misconception that cookbook authors and people who have a full-time living in the food space like have some sort of certification or training.
Yeah, I would agree. And I feel like that even kind of held me back at first because I was like that imposter syndrome, like, oh, geez, like who do I think I am that I could do this? And actually, when I did first start going and looking to write a cookbook, I definitely got some of that feedback because, again, it was like maybe 2010 and people
Mhm.
were like, but you're like nobody, which I was nobody. I mean, I'm still kind of nobody, but so I really decided at that time in like 2010, 2011, I'm like, I'm not even going to think about this cookbook. Like, I knew it was something I wanted to do down the line, but it didn't seem like I could do it on my own terms at that time. It wasn't even maybe that I had an audience, that I didn't have an audience. I think it was more like publishing just didn't really realize the influencer.
Mm,
They weren't influencers then,
right.
but that an influencer could write a book and sell a book.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm just gonna, forge ahead, and I'm loving doing this blog. I'm so happy. I'm having so much fun. It's literally my dream life at the moment. I didn't have kids. We were
Right.
married. And yeah, I was just like, I'm going to spend a few years and do this. And then I had people approaching me to write a book because at
Yes.
that point I had, so many years of trusted, tested recipes
Yeah.
on the internet. And that's kind of the whole thing, how the whole thing came about. So I cook every single day, and I know it's the answer that people hate. But when they are like, how can I learn to cook? How can I get better? You
You got to
have to,
do it.
you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So I just, that's how not only was I mom taught, grandma taught, but doing it every day over the last, 17 years
Yeah.
has definitely,
100%. 100%. Can you, it'd be funny to think like how much you've cooked
oh
over
my
the
gosh, I
17
know.
years.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is crazy. But I think that that's truly how you learn, and it's how you learn anything. You've got to dive in and be willing to experience doing it, and that's exactly how you learn. So you have a lot to teach people when it comes to cooking then, and you've talked about that in your 3 books, but your new book added the word easy.
Yes.
And that is the focus of what I want to talk about, because you have some great tips in here for easy everyday 100 recipes and meal prep ideas for effortless eats. Now, everybody knows what a recipe is, but let's talk a little bit about meal prep for a minute. I hear that word thrown around a lot. What does it really mean to you?
So I have done probably at different times in my 20s and my 30s, I have done the full week of meal prep, the hours on Sunday, the filling up containers with the same meals, the same lunches, the same dinners. And I just cannot do it for multiple reasons. I don't want to spend my time that way. I feel like I lack so much creativity when I do that. And I now have 3 kids, so I don't really have the time to spend that way. The time I do have is that's not how I want to spend it. And I also find that if I prepare something like so much ahead of time, I just don't want to eat it.
Yeah.
You know, so my idea of meal prep, and this is something that started in my third book, Everyday Dinners. And this book is kind of an extension of that, because that book was all dinner and we took the same concepts, but put it, all encompassed all foods, all meals. So I really created this thing. I guess I created it, but it's just lived in my head.
Yeah, but it's yours. Yes. Tell us all about it.
It's like the 10-minute meal prep strategy. And it's very easy. And I have told people, over the last month since this book came out, that even when I was writing the book, I was almost like, oh my gosh, this is easy and almost like a no-brainer. I'm embarrassed to write it. But I decided that what it does is it removes that decision fatigue from our everyday life. So we are all busy. We all have so many things we need to think about, so many decisions. And every recipe in this book uses my 10-minute meal prep strategy, where I pull out, in some cases, the most minimal thing that you can prepare ahead of time to save you time when it comes to your meal. And that is like, your future self will thank you. And again, it might be something that you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that is easy, but we don't have space in our head to think about it. So when you look at all of these recipes, there might be 2, 3, 4 bullet points down at the bottom that'll tell you what you can do ahead of time in 10 minutes to make this easier on you moving forward. In some cases, it's prepare the whole meal. In some cases, it's like an overnight oats, and you can prepare it, or a chia pudding, whip it up in 10 minutes, put it in the fridge. It's good for the next 2 days, the next 2 mornings of breakfast. But the other times it's like, oh, I'm going to cook a grain ahead of time. I'm going to make a salad dressing ahead of time. I am going to chop, a certain vegetable ahead of time that we won't lose any quality by chopping this vegetable. I'm going to marinate this chicken. It's things we've all probably done at one point in time or thought about, but having it there, having it written out for you, it really is like, oh, yeah, I am going to do that because I have 7 minutes right now, and that's so easy. And it seems like it wouldn't save you that much time, but I have 3 young kids, and dinner time is absolute chaos. So having one thing that I can take off my plate, no pun intended, at that time of day is just so helpful.
Yeah. And is there a certain time of the day that you do it, or do you do it just when time presents itself? Or did you say you're doing it while you're actually maybe cooking dinner for that evening?
I would say actually all 3 of those. So I'm a pretty routine person, but I find that I might prepare it first thing in the morning, or if we are at dinner time and maybe we don't have to rush to activities, I already have, a mess on my counter. I'm cleaning up. Maybe let me use this cutting board and chop up something for tomorrow, or I have a few ingredients out. And that's another thing that the 10-minute meal prep strategy saves you, is on the cleanup and, the pulling ingredients out to, again, make maybe this dressing or this sauce. You don't have to do that because you've prepared it ahead of time.
Right.
And it just, it seems like an easy no-brainer. And it is once you get going. And I find that's what happens. Once you get this momentum, you're kind of thinking ahead. Like, oh, I can do that. I can prepare this right now. I can prepare that for tomorrow, and, just remove some of that extra work.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the other things you talk about is a couple things, actually. One is called the Big 3. Tell us about the Big 3.
Yes. So when it comes to meal planning for my family, and this is what I have done for years, I'd say since my oldest became like school age. So probably since he was in kindergarten, I really only plan for 3 meals throughout the week. When I say that, I'm talking about dinner, but it does apply to breakfast. And again, make ahead lunches for myself, because I find that any extra, we will not eat. It might be wasted. We may not want to eat it. I really want to honor, especially my family's requests. If they are craving something and they tell me, I want to be able to make it. I want them excited about food, about mealtime. So it helps with that. And then it also allows for those extra nights of, oh, maybe, you have activities, you're going to go out to dinner. Maybe you're going to order pizza, something like that. And of course, in the back of my mind, I always have something easy that if we're home and we're out of food, we can throw together. We can have breakfast for dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
And with those 3 meals comes 3 things that I'm thinking about. And I look at our week and I'm thinking, okay, ease of preparation. What can I do ahead of time? What is our night like if I'm going to make this for dinner that night or make this for breakfast for the week? I think of like the leftover quality. How can I take this and maybe turn it into something more exciting? We don't mind eating leftovers, but I think it just helps, especially with feeding young kids. I have a 10, 7, and 3-year-old. They can be picky. And I'm like, oh, how can I switch this up to make it a little more exciting for them and feel like a new meal? And then the third thing is just versatility, which kind of goes in hand with that leftover quality. If I'm making some sort of pasta, maybe I cook a little extra or save some to the side and use it for lunch tomorrow for my kids, and their lunch boxes, or put it with dinner tomorrow, something like that. So I kind of think like versatility, the ease of preparation, and that leftover quality, and that determines how I pick our meals for the week.
Yeah, and I think this actually lets a lot of people off the hook because they think if they're going to plan their meals, they got to do every meal every day,
Yes.
7 days a week. I got to have 21 ideas, and that's
Right.
not true.
Right. And that's where really the whole theory happened with me, because I would be so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I can be a perfectionist and it's like, oh my gosh, well, I didn't plan enough, or I didn't plan the right way, or now I bought all these groceries and they're going to waste. So I'm like, how can we fix that? And that's the secret, is just planning for a few. Like, meal planning doesn't have to mean, oh my gosh, again, like you said, planning 21 meals for our entire week.
Yeah.
I have this thing in my phone, which I feel like a lot of people utilize their notes app,
Yes.
like our weeknight meal list, our favorite breakfasts, summer lunch ideas for when my kids are home. And I look through those all the time.
Yeah.
to use them.
Yeah. And then the other 4 nights of the week, like you said, you might have some easy things on hand that you can make at a moment's notice. I also love what you said, that it allows the kids maybe to say, "Hey, mom, tonight could we have blah, blah,
Yeah,
spaghetti and meatballs?" And you're like, "Sure, we can have that." And you might have the stuff on hand, but it's not something you actually, if you're too rigid with the plan, you can't allow for that flexibility.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I want them to be excited
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that
And they
mom,
also change their mind every 5 minutes,
right, because they pay attention to stuff like that, and how you react to them requesting certain food. They're going to remember that. So your openness to saying, "Sure, we could make that," really does. If you were having 7 nights planned, you maybe wouldn't be able to say that. Like, "Nope,
Exactly.
I've got the chicken thawed. I can't freeze chicken twice, so too
Right.
bad. We
Yes,
can't have that
that's a
tonight."
great example.
Yeah, we can't do it. So I love that. So what about, there's also a section about tools, and I think that sometimes it is fascinating to hear about tools that different cookbook authors and cooks love to have in their kitchen and use, and also helps people to know what tools you maybe use to develop recipes for this book. So talk about the 6 tools that you love in your kitchen.
So my number one favorite tool, and I talk about this quite a lot, and I could not live without this. I actually have 2 of them in case one is dirty, is a small personal blender, like the NutriBullet. Okay, so what I use this for is to blend up sauces and dressings. And there is a whole sauces and dressings chapter at the beginning of my book. It is absolutely, it's almost like what I call my fridge essentials. It's kind of what I use and think of that can elevate meals, that when I'm meal planning, I think, oh, what can I, have here that might, again, make a meal different, make my lunch feel more like restaurant quality. Things like quick pickled onions, pickled sweet peppers, pestos, ranches, things like that. Any vinaigrette, I use the personal NutriBullet blender. I absolutely love it. You throw everything in it. You don't have to dice. You don't have to chop. It is so perfect. It blends everything, emulsifies everything. Boom, store it in the fridge, shake it up before you use it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely great. Most people use it for smoothies. I do not. I just use it for sauces and dressings. And the other thing is a microplane. I do tons of, citrus zest, lemon, lime, orange, tons of it. Fresh ginger, fresh garlic, nutmeg, I use a ton of that. And on the same note, a citrus juicer. And when I say citrus juicer, I actually mean the one that you like cut your citrus and press down to juice it so you can get a lot at once. Not the handheld juicer, but more the machine juicer. That I just find that I use that constantly. My kids obviously love it to make like fresh orange juice,
Yeah.
but I use it a lot and think it is definitely worth it. And I am someone that is constantly trying new kitchen appliances, and I never have room for one more. So it has to live up to the hype if I am going to try something new. Another one is the Mezzaluna knife. It's like this big, almost like a smiley face, like a just half moon knife that I love to cut pizzas for my kids. I think it's mostly used to chop, fresh herbs, and it's great to make like a chimichurri or some sort of little compote. It is so helpful. I love using it. I even use it to cut like a small snack cake. It's just super easy, super simple to use. Um, Another one is the serrated grapefruit spoon. I use that all the time to remove squash seeds. So I use it, of course, for grapefruit. I love grapefruit, but I use it to remove, butternut squash, acorn squash, even cantaloupe seeds. I was just cutting a cantaloupe last night for my kids. It makes it so simple. You just scrape out the seeds with a serrated spoon. It's absolutely wonderful. And the final one is a meat thermometer, which I feel like you just can't live without. If you are ever afraid of eating raw chicken or, overcooking your chicken or just any meat, if you want to cook steak perfectly, it's a must have. And they are so affordable these days and they're so easy to use.
Yeah, I agree. And the digital one's not that expensive. And, you really do, I think, overcook meat less if you have a nice little handy meat thermometer.
Absolutely. Totally. Yep.
Yeah, totally change the way you might look at pork or chicken because it's not all dry and you can just take it to the appropriate temperature. And I see in the book you do have a little chart with like meat temperatures, final temperatures, and that's always very helpful as well, for people to know what those final temperatures should be.
Yes.
Yes. So the sauce and dressing chapter first. I was going to dive into the book a little bit and talk about some of the chapters. You also have a whole chapter on breakfast. Talk a little bit about breakfast and how you work that into your daily life with you and your kids and your blog and all the other things that you're doing.
Yes. So I really love breakfast and dinner. I'd say where I struggle was lunch. So breakfast, I like to do a mix of make ahead breakfast throughout the week, whether it is like little egg bites, which I have a really great recipe in the book for like a souffle egg bite that is just plain and fresh and herby in the book, but you can add anything to it. It's very versatile. So if you want to do a clean out the fridge with like vegetables, different herbs, it's super easy to make. So I like to do some make ahead breakfast with that, or I have, certain overnight oatmeals or chia puddings. And then I have other breakfasts that I like to use either on the weekend or more celebratory. Like I have a delicious puff pastry quiche. I could use puff pastry every single day of my life. It's probably my favorite store-bought ingredient. The puff pastry quiche is incredible and also very versatile. Again, you can just switch up the fillings, change up, what you have in your kitchen, seasonal. We are very seasonal eaters. We live in Pennsylvania, so I can't always get the best produce in the summer but like in the winter, I can't get great summer produce. So we're very seasonal eaters.
Yep.
And then I also have a whipped cottage cheese protein pancake, which you can make ahead of time. You can throw them in the freezer. You can keep them in the fridge for the week. They taste nothing like cottage cheese. So if you have somebody that is freaked out by the texture, you don't even know. You blend them up. It's such a delicious, like fluffy, wonderful pancake.
Yeah, sounds great. Now, lunch also is covered in the book. So tell us about what's your hesitation with lunch and what have you settled on when it comes to lunch and what are your thoughts about it?
So my biggest struggle with lunch is I don't want to take the time to necessarily cook something. It's hard enough to find it, take the time to sit down and during the workday. So I don't want to really make something new that is going to create a big mess when either I've just cleaned up from breakfast and I'm going to be starting dinner soon. So I am all about the big make ahead lunches. especially during the week. So same goes for my kids. I have like a tuna white bean orzo salad. I have it's absolutely delicious. I have I think the caprese tortellini salad is in there
Yeah,
too.
it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know. I don't think yeah, that's in lunch. That's not in dinner.
Yeah.
Things that like you can make ahead and stick in the fridge. And again, maybe use something from that sauces and dressings chapter, the quick pickled onions or a little pesto drizzle or, caramelized onion vinaigrette, something I already have on hand can add, a lot to that and make it feel fancier, make it feel like takeout, just make it feel special.
Yeah. And the end of school is coming up. How do you handle feeding the kids during the summer when they're home from school?
Oh my gosh, I feel like they just eat all day.
Yeah.
They have like no concept. It's like,
Right.
they've had like 6 meals by noon.
Yeah.
So we always have breakfast together. And then I have a section in my house. It's a drawer that has what I call like an anytime snack that is just like a snack that's more appropriate. And it's not cookies and it's not, potato chips or something like that. It's something that they can have whenever they want. But then I always in the summer put out huge platters of fruits and vegetables. My kids would like eat an entire grocery store worth of berries if I let them. They love fruit. They will eat vegetables with dip if I have them out. So I really like to do that either sometimes even before lunch or around lunch, and it becomes part of their lunch because they love to serve themselves. If we make tacos, they like all the toppings to be out so they can choose their tortilla. So when it comes, they can add their toppings, they can add their cheese. When it comes to the fruit and vegetables, they love to do the same, especially my 3-year-old. He just loves to serve himself. So that definitely helps. Having that out does kind of curb the snack.
Yeah. It's great. Very good. All right. Now your favorite meal of the day, dinner, and it includes some side dishes.
Yes, I do have a few a few sides in there. There are so many amazing dishes in here, and I have been making them really nonstop for my family for years. It's been hard to keep, gatekeep them and not share them before the book came out. Since we are seasonal eaters, one of my favorites, and I guess you could eat this any time of year, is the smash burger salad. My kids love it. It's so good. It's like a cheeseburger salad, and I do a caramelized shallot vinaigrette. The vinaigrette, it doesn't take too long to come together because, again, we're using a smaller shallot. We're not caramelizing, like 6 onions that are going to take 2 hours to caramelize. And it is a vinaigrette that you can keep in your fridge. That is one of my favorites. My kids love the weeknight baked penne with spinach. They love that. It's a super good, like just easy way to get vegetables in there. Sauce. It's so easy to throw together. That is something that I would make, before I picked my kids up from school and then just stick it in the oven for dinner at night. I have lots of incredible salads in there. There's this wonderful steak dish with a garlicky kale. It is so light, but it is super satisfying and flavorful. It comes together. You can make that in 20 minutes. And I think that is what I'm most excited about with this book is that people see certain dishes and they're like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever to come together. But it's really not. Read through the whole recipe. And once you realize, how quickly it can come together, especially if you prepare 1 or 2 of those things ahead of time or wash and chop your kale and have it ready to go, it comes together so fast. And then everybody's just so much happier at dinner time.
Yeah, they are happier when they're not because I think that time of day, people are coming home from school, they're tired and, that transition time of the day. So it does really help to have these things ready and to have an idea in mind about what the game plan is. It makes it a lot more fun for everybody.
Right.
All right. So your final chapters, you talk about some entertaining and snacks and treats and then cocktails and mocktails. And tell us a little bit about those chapters and then also your philosophy about baking.
Yes. So I'd say the entertaining chapter is mostly like dedicated to my love of cheese. It's a recipe full of, or an in chapter full of cheese recipes. Different dips. I have like a quick Gouda fondue, a marinated cheese, which is so amazing, can be prepared ahead of time, stored in the fridge, brought out, and people just go crazy over it. I had like a green chili cold chilled queso, also incredible. Sounds odd, but you finally grate the cheese. And it is just, with tortilla chips out by a pool in the summer, it's wonderful. Um, Desserts and my philosophy of baking. So my grandmother is really the one who taught me how to bake. My grandmother cooked, but I wouldn't say she was the best cook. She had a few signature dishes, whereas my mom cooked dinner every single night, had a ton of classic dishes that we ate and all loved. My grandmother was much more of a baker. She baked everything from scratch, but also followed no recipes. So it was like I would go over and help her, and she'd be like, "Oh, I think this is enough flour." Not even using a measuring cup, just using a spoon in a container of flour. So I like to bake for loved ones, and especially my kids, and they love to bake. It's really fun for them. They like
Yeah.
to bake more than they like to cook. But the science of baking makes me not love it as much because
Right.
I feel like I can't have as much creativity there.
Yeah.
I can't really, I need to follow the directions.
Right. Right. And isn't it funny? I guess our grandmothers, if they bake that way, they probably in the end, they did maybe have creativity, but they weren't, sticking strictly to a recipe, they just knew how to make it, and they knew how
Right.
something felt, which
Yeah.
actually always amazes me.
The feel, she just knew
Yeah,
by the spoon and the texture of a batter or a dough, she just knew, which
yeah,
was, wild to me.
yeah,
But I do have some great recipes in there: a lemon pudding cake,
yeah,
a caramel pretzel cookie, a no-bake s'mores pie, things that we really, really love.
yeah.
And then, what else? Cocktails.
Cocktails and
Yeah,
mocktails.
I think there's four or five of each. There's either 8 or 10 in that chapter. And I have a cherry Aperol spritz, which I just absolutely adore. I feel like it's even going to be my like drink of this summer. It is so fresh and delicious and just light. It's so summery. But then I also have on the mocktail side, there is a blackberry ginger beer, which is amazing. You make this little blackberry kind of compote syrup, put it over crushed ice, add your ginger beer, add some fresh mint. Oh my gosh, it is so wonderful. It is so refreshing. It's a little bit spicy from the ginger beer. It's just really good.
Yeah, those all sound great. And that is so many good recipes, and, you have 100 of them. How did you work this into feeding your family and developing recipes for the book? Or, like you said, were these just favorites that you were always making for them anyway?
Yeah. So I feel like I'm always testing recipes, especially my kids. They've never known a life without me testing recipes. My husband has. And sometimes my husband and my older son are just like, can we just eat something regular tonight? 'Cause a lot of times they are my guinea pigs. I like to test recipes more either on the weekends or at dinner time because I also do all the photography for my blog and my book. So I want to make sure that I have those recipes tested for during the day, the daylight hours when I can photograph them. So it really is a long process. A lot of recipes I've been testing for years and have been making for years because I'm constantly testing for something, whether it's, recipes on my website or in the book. And it's usually mostly dinner. I would never do it for like entertaining purposes or having, family and friends over, unless it was something super simple that I knew would come together.
Right.
Maybe like a salsa or an appetizer. But if it would be a dinner or something, brand new to me, I wouldn't test it out on anyone but my family.
Yeah, they can try it first.
I might have to end up ordering pizza too. I have quite a few fails, but
Yes, yes, and that does happen, but, I think that when you're doing savory recipes, though, it is easier to work it into what they normally eat, as opposed to if you were gonna write a cake book or a cookie book or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah, yeah. So, if there's someone listening that is wanting to write a cookbook or thinking about pitching a publisher or approaching a publisher, or they've been asked to send, their idea for a book, do you have any advice for cookbook writers?
Yeah. I think first, if they're interested in it, that the best thing you can do is have some sort of online presence, which I do feel like is very intimidating today because there are so many, people out there, but it does help to have some sort of built-in audience. I think that's definitely why I was able to get my first cookbook deal. I had a built-in audience because again, I'm not, professionally trained and I was much younger, so it wasn't like I had 30 years of cooking under my belt. So definitely having a built-in audience. But if you do, I really think it's very important to have an outside source testing your recipes. Like I have some family members that test them, but then I also hire outside, usually like 4 or 5 outside. They usually come from my community to test the recipes and give me their feedback.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a fine line between, you want to make sure that it's somebody that you can trust their feedback, because again, it's not just like, oh, well, I don't like celery, so I don't like this recipe. That's not what I'm going for. I need somebody that really knows how to cook.
Yeah.
Somebody, I'm testing for the time it takes to make the recipe, the quality, is the recipe great? Does it work? Did it come together quickly? What were the instructions easy to follow? So there's a lot to think about it. And I definitely think that is the most important part. And I think while you're doing that, to, write down, keep a whole book of notes so you can form, when you sit down to actually write the manuscript, you have some notes. And I'm not talking about recipe notes, but more like notes, what you feel, what you think, why did you create this? What was your inspiration? When you sit down to write that manuscript, that makes it a lot easier to make things flow and come together.
Yeah. So are you a digital note girl or a notebook, pen and paper?
Oh, I am a pen and paper all the way.
Yeah.
I love pen and paper, and I love it. Now I do write the manuscript on my computer because I'm not that crazy.
Not that much of a Luddite, but I think that's very common. But the funny thing about the books of notes, I love them too, but they're hard to search. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I've got to try to be a little bit, the only way just keeping it all in one place, like one notebook dedicated to the project. And then I can search through that rather than 100 pieces of paper floating around all over the place. Yeah, but I love that you're into pens and notebooks because people are always curious about that, what apps we might use, digital notebook, but a notebook and a pen in the kitchen.
My favorite.
You can splash it, you can get it dirty, and you don't have any risk of anything happening to anything electronic. Yep. So tell us a little bit about cookbooks. You obviously been cooking for a long time, started your online presence in 2009, but when you think back about cookbooks in your life, are there any that jump out as books that influenced you in your cooking journey?
So there's definitely one, but before I get to it, I feel like the cookbooks that probably influenced, I should say, like my mom and both of my grandmothers the most were the old church cookbooks, that communities would put together.
Right.
I find that those are still probably mostly all the cookbooks that my mom has, aside from my own. That is what they used. And so many of my recipes are built on what I grew up with and our modern twist on the classics that I know that I'm sure they're coming from there.
Yes.
It's something my mom or my grandmother made forever. So that would definitely, I'd say, be number one. But number two, before I ever even started my blog, I had the Martha Stewart entertaining book. And I know my mom loved Martha Stewart. So I don't know if she bought it for me or maybe it was a gift, or I might have even been in Barnes and Noble and bought it myself. And I remember sitting in bed looking through it one night, and I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, this is so incredible. It just would be so incredible to be able to live life this way and entertain this way. And, little did I know that I kind of get to do that now. I think nowhere near as much as Martha, but I get to create new recipes and I get to test new recipes. And because it's become easy for me to be in the kitchen, I can entertain really well with family and friends. And that's my absolute favorite thing to do. I just always want my house to be the house where people want to come. They want to come and be, inspired by food. But as my kids get older, I want their friends to always come and like love my chocolate chip cookies. And we always have snacks and we always have, like drinks in the fridge and like I want it to be a warm, comforting, fun place where we can entertain family and friends.
Yeah. And I think they re-released that book for its 40th anniversary, maybe this year. Which is amazing because that book did influence a lot of people because it's a big book. There's a ton to read, a ton of beautiful photos, and what a classic for the time. And for Martha, it might have been her first book.
I think it might have been too. I think I saw her post that on Instagram. I'm not sure now. I'm second guessing myself.
No, I think you're right. I think it is her. I think it was her first book. So amazing. I'll link to Martha Stewart Entertaining in the show notes. And I know a lot of people that listen can definitely relate to the church cookbooks. And a lot of people collect those books, church cookbooks. Yes. I'll often do that if we're traveling. Like we went to Door County, Wisconsin last summer, and I was poking around in an antique shop and I found an old church cookbook from Door County. And I thought, it's kind of neat to pick that up and to buy it because it really does give you a snapshot in time of a location that you've visited. And the recipes are different. They're different things that they eat. Obviously, a lot of fruit. They had a lot of cherries, a lot of the old fashioned is like a very popular drink there. So it was really neat to pick up an old church cookbook. An old church cookbook. All right. So tell us a little bit about how people can connect with you online. And if you have anything, events coming up or anything that you want to share.
Yeah. My website is howsweeteats.com. And I am How Sweet Eats everywhere on Instagram, Facebook, even on TikTok occasionally. You can find me at How Sweet Eats.
Okay. And now we know the real story that it's based on the song How Sweet It Is by James Taylor. Wonderful. I kept thinking, I wonder if it's related to desserts or baking.
But everyone thinks it is. So sometimes.
Well, no, that's what makes it a great story, though. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's been wonderful to connect with you on the show today, Jessica. Thank you so much for sharing everything about your new book, Easy Every Day. And we wish you nothing but the best, promoting your book, talking about it, and also enjoying the 4th publication.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. Again, all the links can be found in the show notes at www.cookbooklove.co. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, please check out the free cookbook writing masterclass called How to Get Paid to Write a Cookbook. It is designed specifically for food or nutrition experts, and you can check that out at www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. So that's it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.